So in this part of the Bible, we have Joseph who moves a lot of people from Israel, God's people, into Egypt. And 100 years have passed, hundreds and hundreds. And all these people become descendants of Abraham. And during this time, we have a king of Egypt, who they called the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh was very scared of the people of Israel because he was scared of losing his position as the king of Egypt. And during this time, he was worshipped like a god to the people of Egypt. The Egypt didn't know who Jesus was. They didn't know who God was. The only God they knew was the king of Egypt, the Pharaoh. So during this part, God decides to choose Moses and his brother Aaron, not Abraham, Aaron. And Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron was 83 years old. And Moses had lived his entire life serving the Lord and always following what God told him to do, because he knew nothing better. Like he felt as long as he followed what God told him to do, then everything will work out. However, we have this king of Egypt, the Pharaoh. He only cared about himself. All he wanted to do was do things for the betterment of himself. And this is why he would not let the people of Egypt go. He would not let the Israelites go. They were slaves. Does everyone know what a slave is? What is a slave, Eugene?
Someone who, technically, they're human property.
Like human property, yes. So slaves, they cannot think for themselves. They cannot act for themselves. They have to listen like prisoners, like they are in jail. So if the king of Egypt says, hey, you need to dig the dirt over there all day long, 24 hours, then they have to listen. They have no control over what they can do. They can't go outside. They can't play soccer like Daniel does. They can't play Minecraft like Jaden does. All they have to do is listen to the king of Egypt. So they were living a very tough life. Now God wanted to free all the people of Egypt, all the Israels who were slaves, and he chose Moses. And Moses was sent by God to Egypt, and he told the king of Egypt, please let the Israelites go. And God gave Moses almost the power of God himself. He gave him a staff, and Moses showed the king of Egypt the staff, and the staff turned into a snake. However, the Pharaoh, he was still not impressed. He was like, no, I am not going to let the Israelites go. And then after that came many other things. He sent sorcerers, like magicians, to show them that they have like magical powers to the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh was still not believing in this. So God at this point said, I need to show them the 10 plagues. What is the 10 plagues? A plague is like a disaster. So many very terrible things started to happen in Egypt. So the first thing was the sea started to turn into blood. And all the fishes in the sea, they started to die, and then Egypt became very smelly. And after that, many other things happened. For example, frogs started to invade Egypt. So not only did you see lots and lots of frogs outside, you saw frogs in your house, you saw frogs on your bed, in your oven, on your kitchen stove. Well, they probably didn't have kitchen stoves back then, but Jaden, would you go to sleep if there was a frog on your pillow? You would? No problem? I think people in Egypt, they had a lot of trouble going to sleep during this point. But then the most important part of this plague was God said, all of your firstborns will die. So everyone's firstborn child in Egypt, including all the animals firstborns, they died. And then at this point, the king of Egypt, all of his confidence faded. And he said, okay, you can finally have your people back. And it was this was the reason why God wanted to show the people of Egypt, all the slaves, all the Israelites, the true power of himself. He wanted to show the true power of God and that God can provide these types of miracles. So as long as we follow the words of God like Moses did, everything will work out for us. So let's try not to live the life of the Pharaoh. Let's try not to be stubborn. Let's try not to only think about ourselves. Amen?